Beyond bent. Janssen! And Blackburn Rovers are 18 minutes away from a Premiership return.
As far as Stewart, just outside the penalty area, clips it central for David Dunn. David Dunn equalises. It just had to be. Dax corner and it goes. Glance towards goal, and Rovers have taken the lead. And Charlie Mulgrew has scored his 14th of the season.
Hello and welcome to the Rovers Chat YouTube channel. We're back, we're live and we're ready for a new season as we preview the full 2022-23 season. So, obviously live means we might have a few mistakes along the way, but we'll try and iron those errors out. As you can see, I'm joined by Dom. How are we doing, Dom?
Yeah, well, I was good until I had the realisation that I was the oldest one here, and now I'm having a bit of an existential crisis.
Yeah, I've noticed that before we started that they're a bit of an age worry for you, especially when we mentioned half of the team were younger, but we won't go into that. Alex, how are we doing today?
I'm good, Dan. Good to be on the show. I can't believe it's 48 hours until the new season. It feels like the shortest pre-season ever, apart from the COVID pre-season, which was a bit crazy. But yeah, it feels like 2 minutes ago since the Birmingham game. So yeah, ready to get into a new season, obviously, and talk about it tonight. So yeah, looking forward to it.
And of course, last but not least, Matt, how are we doing?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, Dan. I think I'm on the same lines with Alex there. It does feel a bit flabbergasting that it's the start of the season already, but I'm excited and I can't wait to get into it and dive into it and see what we're saying for the season ahead now.
No, it's nice to have you all on. Obviously, you might have noticed there could be a few connection issues along the way. If there are, just stick with us. We all know what YouTube can be like and we know what the rest of the streaming stuff's like. So we'll get straight into it. Obviously, we've got a lot of people in already. We've got Tyler who says hello, Adam Davey, hello, Michael Pearson, evening all, Merry Christmas. I think someone delayed as well. Jared's here, the RC under 23s. Adam says hello, Alex, hi Dom. We've been left out, Matt, but we won't mention that.
No, it's fine, keep it going.
And I do. And Steve, I'm not going to put Steve's comment up because YouTube might end up taking us down. But we'll, and Mark Duggan, of course. Hi, guys. So we'll get straight into it. Obviously, myself and Dom ran through pre-season the other day, but it'd be nice to get your thoughts on it, Alex and Matt. So we'll start with Matt. Matt, what do you make of pre-season? Obviously, 5 fixtures that at least we saw for Rovers. You know, there were rumours going around yesterday that Rovers played, you know, a friendly against Port Vale. But from the 5 that we were allowed to go and see, you know, what did you make of pre-season? Was it, I think the first question will be, was it a good quality pre-season in terms of the games we played? You know, was it a good test for us?
Well, I feel a bit overdone with the pre-season. I've been doing plenty of writing on it recently and stuff like that. But, you know, there's never too much to go through. I think with the Accrington game, I'll start from the start. I think with the Accrington game, you know, it's what you expected from two 60-minute games, really. Apart from the fact you'd expect it to go the other way around. You'd expect the first team to do a bit better than what we saw from the second team. So, you know, when it comes to quality there, it's what you expect, really. It's our local team. It's a bit of a kick-about. It's to get it started. But I really enjoyed the Scotland trip, actually. I thought the quality was at times debatable. I mean, at Celtic especially, you know, every time they attacked, it looks like we were going to concede. And I think it really shows us that the defence is something definitely to focus on. So, you know, at the end of the day, that's what you want from pre-season, though. You want to take away things from pre-season. You don't want to go through pre-season and go, right, everything looks perfect, ready for the season ahead. You want to be taking away a lot of things. And I think working on the defence is definitely one of them. And then going down to the northeast, really, with the Lincoln and the Hartlepool. Again, it's what you expected from some English league teams. I think it was a decent pre-season. Yeah, there's a couple of games you thought maybe we could have played stronger opponents to really see the quality of the youth and not play them against these really easy teams. And I think, you know what, they can do the job next year. When really, do we actually know if they can? So quality, decent, could it have been better? Definitely.
Well, I think John Dahl alluded to that in one of his interviews. You know, he said he'd have done it different. It kind of seemed like when Rovers played, even those who weren't involved, they'd have that high intensity training that it were like playing a match. So it were almost like they were playing 2 a week anyway. Obviously, you know, we got a few more saying hi. Ireland Rovers said, hey guys. Michael Pearson's give his thoughts on pre-season. You know, he said, calculated pre-season, all about minutes. Enjoyed seeing the young talent and they'll have depth, which is what you need from your academy, really. And Steve, I can show this one. I'm match fit, drinking arm ready. That's what we like to hear. So, Alex, pre-season, who stood out for you? Who do you think's got a chance from the academy? Like Michael mentioned, a lot impressed.
Well, I think the players that stand out are the players that have stood out through the young age groups and are the reason why they're quite well sought after from Premier League clubs. So Ash Phillips, obviously, Adam Wharton, Jack Vale as well. So they're probably the 3 that come to mind straight away. If you're looking at maybe players that had more of a peripheral role, but maybe want to establish themselves as a permanent fixture in the team, you'd be looking more at players like, for example, John Buckley, who was moved around a little bit last season in midfield, but looks more to be getting that fixed position in centre mid. So there's certainly a few players that stood out. I agree with Matt in the sense that I don't think the opposition was too great overall. I think, having said that, we've looked at the games that QPR have played, and I think their opposition were even worse than the ones that we've had. So I don't think either team's going to have much of an advantage in that respect on Saturday. So I think when you appoint a manager so late as we did, he's kind of at the mercy of what the club had already arranged, and you kind of have to work around that at such short notice. So if there are kind of suboptimal fitness levels as a result of that, then I don't think we can maybe blame the manager too much on that one. That's maybe the club's fault. So we have to see how it pans out. But I think certainly from what I've seen in pre-season, the players do look fit. They do look like they've had a proper pre-season. It just feels like a very short pre-season. It feels like they haven't had actually that many minutes. And so you do get concerned about maybe injuries and things like that in the first month or so. So we'll have to wait and see on that one.
Yeah, I think me and Dom spoke about how competitive it was in terms of pre-season. I think that Celtic game were ridiculously competitive. You know, I think there were 6 yellow cards in a friendly, which is don't get given out off at the time in the Championship. So it showed. I felt like you said it was. I know it weren't a long pre-season. It were only 2 weeks really with 5 games, but it just felt higher intensity than a normal pre-season. I'm used to pre-season being a kickabout, but especially that Celtic game, it felt like a full-blown league game. So, obviously, we mentioned depth and the comments mentioned depth. That's the worry, I think, for Rovers fans at the moment, you know, that we'll go into this season with not enough players. Obviously, transfers will come in, but we'll come to you, Dom. You know, in terms of squad depth, what's your take on Rovers as they actually stand in terms of how many players they've got and, you know, where we need to strengthen?
Yeah, when I was looking on the actual squad information, the we talk about centre backs and defenders, and centre mid seems to be the biggest one in terms of how little we've got. We've got Travis and Buckley, Garrett and Wharton, who seem unproven right now. You can even put Dak if you really needed it, but you lose one of Buckley or Travis, and you're talking about players that have never played a single minute in a professional game. At the back, obviously, a big if is if Ayala stays fit. It keeps getting reiterated. We're looking at 2 centre backs, and those 2 positions seem like the key ones where we need depth now, essentially.
I think part of it is, though, and I think Steve makes a good point here, it kind of linked into it, that I know we've got squad depth issues, but I look at the Championship and I think it's been really poor in terms of transfers for a lot of clubs. I think a lot haven't got the job done. I was speaking to a QPR fan. That will go out in the preview on Friday for the match, but I was speaking to him and he was saying they've usually made 11 signings by now. They're usually a club that go straight into it, get everyone early on, no matter who the manager is, and then have them bed in, and they've only made 4. So it does look a bit like a Championship issue. Middlesbrough, everyone's back in Middlesbrough to go and do well in the league, but they've not signed a striker yet. And the season's just round the corner. You know, everyone seems to be struggling. So I think that is something to, you know, to take into account. Just a little off plan, purely influenced by one of the comments that Gaz has put in. Nice to see you, Gaz. It's nice to have you back on. You know, a name we've seen for a while now, especially, you know, the lockdown. So although we haven't got the amount of players through the door that we'd have liked, I found all the backroom scouting director of football appointments promising. What do you think of them appointments? Now, I did put a tweet out about, you know, Rovers and their appointments, and for me, it looks a really positive mood. It feels like we've got the structure now. We've actually got that structure we've craved for as long as I can remember since the owners took over. Whether it works is another story. I appreciate that things could horribly go wrong, but they could as easily go right. Matt, what do you make of just the way Rovers have kind of got the structure sorted? Obviously, we've got the fitness director and we've got Greg in as director of football. Gus Williams has come in, who I think's got a really good reputation. I'm not going to claim I know a lot about him, but purely reading what he's done, he looks like he's got a good reputation. Obviously, I know there's a few stuff with the CEO, with Steve Waggart, but we've got this structure now and we've got what seems on paper at least like a plan, a model. What have you made of all these changes? Because they're bigger than the squad changes, really.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's not much changes with the squad apart from the departures, really. So it's not too hard to actually beat any of the incomings coming in, because all we have really got coming in, apart from Callum Britton at right back, is just back like room staff. And I think it feels good to have a proper structure at the club finally. It looks promising, you know. We know that, you know, these appointments have only come in recently. I mean, Gus Williams has got a very good reputation in Wales. So it's always promising to see bringing people in like this. And, you know, it feels like we aren't panicking anymore with some of these appointments. You know, it feels like very clever appointments. Yeah, they are good, and it is going to take time, and the fans need to realise that. But as soon as we get there, that it'll be a perfect plan implemented, and then we are in the perfect position, maybe not this year, but the year after that, to go for the playoff pushes like we have been for the past 2 years.
That's it, and I think we'll go on to, you know, hopes for the season later, but I think that sums it up well. So, Alex, obviously, I know we've both been pretty vocal before. You've probably been the most vocal of the lot in terms of structure as such, and I know you did the podcast with Ollie and Tom for a while, and, you know, all the structure discussions on there. What do you make of the changes, and, you know, is there still work to be done within the system? Obviously, it's early days, and like I say, everything could go to pot, but are you encouraged by what we've actually done this summer?
I'm encouraged by the new structure that we've got in place, but we need to kind of see it under pressure.
Yeah.
Because you only really see how everyone interacts when results aren't going that well, and you see all that interplay with the fans and that kind of thing. So I think it's too early right now to say that we've got it 100% right, but it's a structure. If I was left with a blank sheet of paper and I could like design a way that a football club should be run, then that's probably more the direction I would go down. The big issue I've always had is, if you're going to have a director of football, do they actually have power to do anything? Because if they don't have the power to actually hire and fire managers, make signings and all the rest of it, negotiate contracts,
it's just a job role, isn't it? Otherwise, it's just giving someone a job.
You really might as well not have one, and you might as well have had Mowbray doing it all himself like he did for 5 years anyway. So we need to see how that plays out. The early signs are that he does have quite an influential role, but again, it's only been a few weeks, so we'll have to see how that one plays out. On the head of recruitment front, again, he hasn't had any experience in, as far as I'm aware, in first team football, more national football, so it's a very different role. Obviously, in team football, you are only limited by your transfer budget and wage budget and not by nationality, so that's a very different kind of search for players. So it'll be interesting to see again how that plays out. But I think for this transfer window, we've been limited by, again, what the club already had in place before they arrived. So, yeah. And as I said before, the most important thing with this new structure is that the people in these roles actually are able to do the jobs. They're actually given the power to do the jobs that their job description essentially allows them to do. So, and we haven't always had that at Rovers, have we? So, we have a CEO who really isn't a CEO because he has to ask the Venkies to do anything. And so when a club is run that way, it's kind of difficult to compare us to, say, somewhere else where it's been successful. But yeah, the early signs are that it seems to be working, and we have to let it play out before we start criticising anything. So I can't say anything negative about it.
That's it, isn't it? We can have the optimism, but we've got to also keep that bit of judgment for how it works out. We'll look at it down the line, and I'm sure it'll be something that's discussed regularly through JDT's, time at the club. They mention, obviously, we look into the comments, and Mike says the backroom staff on paper look top notch. If they can work as a team to help the manager and the owners are back in line, it can only help us, and I think that sums it up well. So, we've mentioned squad depth, we've mentioned what we need to bring in, but in terms of actually what we've got, so I'm going to ask you to each pick out a key player this season, and I don't want it to be we'll limit it from being a key player that was already a key player, and so maybe who do you think could step up and become in that top group? Because we've lost Dara this year, who was really highly influential in the side. We've lost Rothwell, who was, he was influential. Nyambe's been here a long time. All that stuff in terms of them top level of players we'll avoid. But who do you think could step into being a key player? We'll go with you first, Dom. We'll go into who you think, can maybe come into being a key player in the team.
Yeah, well, I was looking around the room seeing who Tom was then for a second.
So was I.
I think the player that I will go for, which isn't a key player right now, but I think that could push on to be, he was a bit part player last season, brought in January, and it's Ryan Hedges. He's 27. He's one of the older players in the team. And you forget that he was brought in at the end of he was in the second half of the season, which may seem like he was a poor player because he was part of a poor team essentially in the second half. But he was captain twice in the friendlies, like we say, and I think that John Dahl will see him as a key player. And the more minutes you play, the more confidence you have. And I feel like throughout the season, that's what he'll become.
Yeah, completely agree. And just before we move on to Matt, so Kevin just says, hi chaps, just a quick message, going to miss the lives, going to be at the game Saturday and might see you around. Pleasure having you on for the small part you've been on, Kevin. Obviously, if you see any of us Saturday, just say hello. So Matt, key players this year who weren't maybe key last year, who are you going for?
As you saw then, I was head in hands then, because I was hoping you'd pick on me first. I could get Ryan Edges in there because I know he's a big one. And yeah, screw you, Dom. I have to think on the spot now a little bit. But, I'm going to leave the negative one for Alex. I'm sure Thomas Kaminsky is coming up because we've got no defence or something like that. So I'll leave something like that down to Alex in the bottom left there. I think, personally, someone's already got it in the comments. I think Mark's hit it on the head. I think John Buckley. I think that with, like Dom was on about before, the midfield options we've got and the depth we've actually got right now, it's not looking good, really, is it? It's not looking good whatsoever. So we need Buckley and Travis as a pair to step up together. And the reason I didn't pick Travis is mainly because if he's going to be the captain next year, he clearly did something last year in pre-season, right? And he's the obvious choice. But Buckley, I think we need to see a lot more creativity from him this year, losing Rothwell and stuff like that. We need that creative player. And I feel like Buckley, we all know he's got it in the bag. We all know the bags of potential he's got. He's a fan favourite. We've got the song for him. He goes by the name of John Buckley, and hopefully this year he can prove why the Rovers fans love him so much.
And I think that new role might suit him perfectly. The call it the number 8 role that TOMASSON's brought in. So Alex, you've got the hardest task because 2 of your players have gone, but who are you going for your other player that weren't a key player last year but will have to step up this year and become one?
Well, I think other than the 2 players that have already been put forward, which I would agree with 100%, they would be the ones that I would have picked. The other players that come to mind would be obvious for some reasons and not for others. So obviously Callum Britton is brand new, so obviously we don't know how he's going to fit into the team. You hope that he lives up to the billing and becomes a key player in the team. Another one would be Mark Andy, who we have barely seen at all, and so you'd hope that he can find a place in the side or at least force his way into the side. And then I think really the one that stands out is probably Sam Gallagher, depending on the Diaz situation. That if Diaz does leave, you are in the situation where, depending on what happens in the transfer window, you're relying on him to get the goals for us. And I think we've kind of criticised him on occasion for maybe, I think partially for playing out on the right wing, which was Mowbray's fault. I think TOMASSON has kind of carried on with the same thing, so I'm not too hopeful about that. But he's always tended to get double-figure goals without really looking like a key player. So you think if he gets a run of form and becomes the main man in the team, then maybe he can push and try and get towards the 20-goal mark. And so that only increases in importance if we lose Diaz later in the window. So they'd be three that I would put forward alongside those other two, which I agree with 100%.
That's it. And, new manager brings, obviously, a new opportunity for players. We've seen Tayo Eden, I think, look really good in pre-season. I know he had a really rough first season, really. He really struggled. That piece of a red card, I think, will stick with me for a long time. But, like you say, new chances, players leaving. Obviously, Brereton Diaz is you one. There's a comment about Brereton Diaz, and it's simply, will he stay, will he go? I think we've covered it loads, and I think we've all kind of said he's going to go. How we spend that money will be a discussion for another show, but, we'll move on in terms of the show and in terms of what we're discussing. Obviously, what are we expecting for the season? Not your finishes, but I think the word that's been bandied around recently is transition. I think that's been everywhere. The word transition's been labelled by every person who's predicted this season. Rovers fans, just Championship pundits, everyone said transition. Matt, are we expecting a transition season, or do you think we can maybe push up to the playoffs, or do you think we're going to be, hanging around the relegation spots?
Well, I'm going to be optimistic about this one. I'll leave the relegation zone to our little friend to my right on the camera here, left in Alex. I'll leave that to Alex because we love a little toss up over there. But yeah, I think to be honest, it'll be a massive transition, won't it? We can't expect John Dahl Thomason with no English managerial role before, not even as an assistant or anything like that. We can't even tell him straight away, we want this, we want playoffs, we want promotions. That's just not an expectation. That's a reality. We can live in dreamland and hope it can come. But he's been put in this position where it's gone, right, Thomason, here you go. Here's the job. It's a great job. You've got one of the best jobs in England. I would say still a very highly rated team. I think it's one of the best jobs you can have in England with the youth we've got as well. But your key centre-back's going to leave you. Your key assister's going to leave you. And your only right back at the club's going to leave you as well. You know what I mean? He's been put in a really, really bad situation. And for what he's done with the youth so far, we've got a first-class youth system still. What he's done with the youth in the pre-season's been amazing. To get someone in straight away as well. I managed to get him playing straight away and getting an assist to Dak as well, seeing a bit of link-up there. I think the fact that he's managed to do all that in a small period of time shows the promise of the manager we've got. But we can't expect him to reach the heights of getting playoffs and, promotion straight away. Give it a couple of seasons, even give it next season. We don't know. We don't know how much the Venkies are going to invest. I think a good manager can take you as far as you want, but you need the funding behind him as well. And I think the rest of the summer is a real idea of what we're going to get from Thomason. Because if he gets the backing financially, I think that next season we'll be pushing. But this year, transition, mid-table for me.
I think, like we mentioned, I think Alex mentioned it in his response before about the structure, that he's not really had time to do anything. And, he needs that full window with this structure and with everyone in. He probably needs another 2 windows, doesn't he, realistically? I think, I'm not calling it a write-off season, but it should be a season that we're not expecting too much. And if something does happen, then, we'll all enjoy it. We'll all enjoy a playoff push. But if it doesn't, and we're sat like we was that first season back in the Championship, we're sat 12th, 13th, 14th. I don't think many people will be that fussed. I think we'll all realise that, it's been a good transition. It's tough, Callum mentions it here, that transition's a word that takes any urgency and intensity out of it. And it is really, I think Thomason will be told he's got time, he's got his contract. Rovers don't want to spend money to sack him, let's be honest. We don't want to do that. We never want to spend that money, and it does feel like we've been in a long transition. Mowbray, journey were banded around by him so many times, and it felt like a never-ending journey, and it has ended. But now you've got to start again. You'll see it with every club. Huddersfield are the same, Huddersfield is having to start the process again because Corberan's gone, and I think it's just part and parcel of a new manager, especially when we've had one in for 5.5 years. Just in terms of squad depth, so we mentioned before about centre-back, and Michael said he isn't 5 centre-backs enough, and I thought we'd just quickly divert onto this one. So his 5 is listed: Wharton, Ayala, Carter, Phillips and Barnes. Now for myself, does Ash Phillips even see the season out if he won't sign a contract? Does Sam Barnes realistically need a loan spell at a lower league club before he comes in? I appreciate we've got academy, and I'm probably one of the biggest pushers of getting academy players in, but centre-back's a much harder place to bring a player in than giving someone time elsewhere. If you can put Adam Wharton on for the last 10 minutes of the games this season, and it won't really matter because it's not too influential. A centre-back's a really hard position. We've seen McGlow come in and struggle. Matty Platt, Joe Grayson, the list goes on in terms of centre-backs that we've struggled with before. For me, he needs a loan. I'll come up to you, Don. In terms of centre-backs, how many do Rovers need, and are any of them 5 going to be involved all season? Obviously, Wharton will, and probably Carter, but Ayala, Phillips and Barnes are all potentially not going to be involved as much this season.
Yeah. Well, the classic example is Scott Wharton, who needed 3 or 4 loan moves to actually fill out and become a man. That's, I feel like, what needs to be. That's like a main attribute of how to be a centre back, is to be a man. You could be like John Stones, like the odd occasion where it works when you're 19 years old. But like you talk about Sam Barnes and Phillips. Phillips looks calm on the ball, but he's not played, like I said, Garrett and the other Wharton, oddly enough, they've not played a professional minute. They played youth system, and it's a massive jump between youth and Premier League B and, Championship quality centre back. I'd say the 3 of them, and Ayala, how much can you trust him to play 46 games? Is you could ask every single Blackburn fan, and it's under 5% of them would say that it would even last 30 games. So if you're going to play a back 3, you've got 2 that could play. Carter's still not had a full season in the Championship, so there's down to 1 already. It's looking bleak, but you got to believe in the system. I would say 3. You definitely need 2 more.
Yeah, and that's it. And you see, we went for it. Like, obviously, we went for Ben Davies, who'd have played presumably on the left. So I think the dream would have been Davies, Wharton, Ayala this season. If he'd have come in. The guy from Sheffield United, who I'm not going to try and pronounce as well, Double A, we'll call him. He'd have probably come into that spot. So I think you can see JDT's plans. It's probably his dream would be Wharton, Ayala, and another centre back that comes in with Carter playing regularly, because Ayala's never going to play 46 games, and that's probably what we're expecting. But centre back, a young lad at centre back, I think Tom sums it up perfectly. Hayden Carter's gone out on loan twice to try and get himself ready for this division. Wharton did it. There are only 2 centre-back success stories since Grant Hanley, probably, from the academy. Grant Hanley and Phil Jones come through at the same time, didn't they? So it's them 2. So loans are needed, I think, for these young lads, especially at centre-back. Centre-mid, you can get away with it. You can come in and do it. John Buckley did it. Lewis Travis did it. How many centre-mids have gone out on loan and then come back and done well for us? Not many. So it is a tough one to get right, and you've got to get the loan right, which we've discussed a million times. I just thought if anyone's not seen it, new to the channel, I know there's a lot of subscribers recently, which we appreciate, but we did a full video on Ashley Phillips. Earlier this year, we looked at, what's the best for him, and we just discussed really where he should end up, and that would before the contract. Obviously, news that he hadn't signed. So just dip back into the comments. Obviously, keep the comments coming. We'll keep showing them through. Michael thinks Carter looks the part, big unit, can swatch places, definitely not right back. I think that's shown by, he's probably third choice now, isn't he? If we assume James Brown's gone out, third choice right back and he'll play centre back. Mark, Garrett could be a massive surprise in the team this year. He could be, and he threatened last year, didn't he, really, with pre-season, but he never got in, and we don't really know what young lads are going to do until maybe the window's done. Tyler Morton's, he's almost set to come in, isn't he? The deal's done. He's sat there waiting to come, so probably see one of them centre mids go out. I'm not too sure who. And then if we look further down, Michael Pearson, does Phillips need game time to stay? For me, it depends on his mentality, doesn't it? If he goes to Tottenham, is he going to play? No. Is he going to get in the first team? He'd probably have to go out on loan and come back to the Championship to then play at Tottenham for a year, unless they get an injury crisis and suddenly Ash Phillips is the new saviour for the club. But we all know how that goes.
Yeah, it's been linked with Tottenham, but you look at Joe Rodon, who was from Swansea.
Yeah.
He played 2 games last season, I think, something like that.
And he was absolute class at this level when everyone wanted him, and that's it. If you go to these big clubs, you can't play. No manager, with all respect, is going to look at a 17-year-old defender and think, I've got to play him when I've got to fight. The Prem, you've got to fight. Clubs like Tottenham, top 4 at least. Both cups are seen as something you could go and win. And then the European competition. So you're basically playing in 4 competitions that you expected. Obviously, Rovers can just lose a cup game and no one really cares, did they? But all these bigger clubs need to win these games, and they're reluctant to play players. It's just football now. You can be gone in 5 games as a manager, and do you want to throw away your game and let a 17-year-old play 5? Probably not. So we're going to round off soon, and we'll wrap up, and all the content's still coming out for the pre-season. So you can check that out.
Before we do that, James made a point there about Callum Britton being used in the midfield when injuries hit in the centre. I don't think if you're out there, this is a strange one for me because, as we know, James Brown's going out on loan, and for me, that's really bizarre. We'll see a video soon, an announcement video for when he's leaving on loan, but we're mourning about this whole, we don't have depth in our squad situation, but Britton probably is one of the players that, if there is an injury in midfield and he has to fulfill that, he probably will. And then we've got Rankin Costello, who is primarily playing on the left side, who we're now going to try and use as a right back, when really we've got a natural right back in James Brown, who played the last game of last season against Birmingham, and he looks pretty comfortable. He's a big physical guy. He looks like he can handle himself in the Championship. I just had to get it in there. I just find it very bizarre that we're sat here complaining about the depth in the team, but yet we're still getting rid of more and more. It's just so stupid.
It might
lead
to the fact that we're actually getting somebody then.
Just to jump in, I've just seen a comment. I was laughing during you speaking, Matt. It weren't at you. It was at Patrick's comment.
All right.
Who seems to think we're Bristol Rovers page. I don't know where the Bristol accents come from, but we're definitely not Bristol Rovers. And Nigel Pearson definitely doesn't own us. So I think you might be on the wrong page there. But welcome anyway. Hit subscribe. If you want to watch a bit of watch-alongs on a Saturday, keep going. I don't know what's happened there, but that's what I were having a laugh at there. It's put me off guard a bit.
I've put the dark horses as well. I put them in.
I know. Go and watch the video. Go and watch the video, Patrick. You'll see us. I think everyone's stuck up for Bristol City this year, but anyway, we'll move on because we're not Bristol Rovers. We don't have Joey Barton in, thank God. But we'll move on to predictions. Obviously, Dom's done his predictions. Matt's done his predictions. They're out today if you've not seen them. But we've not had Alex's and we've not had mine either in terms of this season. So, Alex, 3 questions on that prediction show that we did. We'll just do it in terms of Rovers. So, Rovers Player of the Year prediction, under 23 prediction. So, anyone under the age of 23 you think will win the Young Player of the Year award as such, and where you think we'll finish in the league.
Oh, no pressure. Player of the season, difficult one. I'll go with Lewis Travis. Young player of the season, I will go with... I'm trying to say something that isn't completely stupid.
Playing a bit safe for you, Alex. I thought you would have gone a bit more out there, not Lewis Travis. I thought when you said that, I was like, come on, that's a bit safe for Alex, that. Next you'll be saying John Buckley, play it a bit too safe.
New season, new man, what can you say?
Under 23s, I will go with Mike Andy. And for finish, I will go for... This is difficult depending on signings and what happens throughout the rest of the window. As of right now, 15th. Ooh. If we sign 3 or 4 decent players, it could be between 6th and 12th, you know. But at the moment, 15th, I will go with. And the blue and white crew, Alexandra, will survive this season.
I can see Callum's put one in the comments. Predictions. We'll show them up after, man. But if you've any predictions for Player of the Year, Young Player of the Year, just chuck them in there. We'll run through them. My Player of the Year, I think John Buckley will win it. I think he'll really excel in that number 8 role. I can see him, unless Brereton stays, it's not happening, is it? So Buckley, I'll have in there. I think we'll go for Jake Garrett, Young Player of the Year. I just can't see Jack Vale. If you're a striker, you have to score goals, don't you, to get in that Player of the Year and Young Player of the Year, really. And I don't see Jack Vale getting a million minutes playing. I see him getting 20, 30 minutes, maybe scoring a few, but not enough to get a Young Player of the Year. And position, I'm like Alex. I think it won't surprise me if we finish 8th, and it won't surprise me if we finish 19th, purely because that group's horrendous to pick from. You've got QPR coming in new. Huddersfield are basically a new setup with a manager and everything that went on there. Rovers, Bristol City are unknown with the transfers. Cardiff have bought about 15 players. Can you actually say, could Cardiff just go straight down? Hull have got all these foreign players in that could just come and flop, or they could be incredible and take them up to the Prem. There's so many unknowns in this league. I'll go for 14th, I think, about a season like the first one back. But if we sign an incredible striker, I'll be back saying we're getting playoffs. So in the comments, we've got Callum Robinson, Player of the Year, Kaminsky, Young Player, Markanday. Mark said Van Eyck. I wish we could, but Dolan and Buckley for Young Player. And then we've got Dak, Player of the Year, Gallagher, top scorer. So Gallagher's role, I think we'll discuss if and when Diaz goes. But is there anyone you see this year topping Gallagher to get top scorer? We'll just have a quick discussion on top scorer out of the current squad. Or do you think it's going to be, Gallagher, and then if we sign someone else, maybe up? Because obviously Dak can score goals, but is Dak going to play the minutes that Gallagher's going to play? No.
I think
so.
Yeah. I think the only 2 players that can outscore Gallagher would be Dak and Brereton Diaz, really, in the current squad. Dak, we don't know. He hasn't had much of a pre-season on the back of those 2 horrific injuries. He did score in the little game time he had, which is a good sign. But is he going to play many minutes next season? What's his role going to be in the team? We don't actually know that yet. So is he going to be seen as more of a sub to impact the game off the bench? Or is he going to play 90 minutes every week? I mean, I don't think he's going to be playing 90 minutes week in, week out at the moment. He's just not physically fit enough, I don't think, to play the style of play that this new manager wants us to play. So really, to beat Gallagher, you're going to have Brereton or Dak, one of the 2. And unless Markanday has an unbelievable season, which I just can't see, I just can't see that at all. But it's one of those 2 if you want someone to outscore Gallagher.
Matt, you were about to say something, weren't you, on it?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, don't be silly.
You're right.
First of all, with the Markanday shout, I thought specifically when he played against Dundee, I thought on the ball he looked really good. Like on the ball, the way how agile he was turning, he was really good. So that's a really good shout. That. But moving on to who can outscore Sam Gallagher, no one. And I'm glad Alex said that, because I thought he was going to be the one to say that. Absolutely no one. Because if I'm looking at the way we're doing things at the minute with that Callum Britton cross, yeah, I can guarantee you Sam Gallagher's finishing the season on about 15, 16 goals, and Callum Britton's bagging himself about 12 assists as well. Because the way I mean, come on, that assist in pre-season, he's taking the mick. It's like he's playing against the year sixes in football again. The way he just whips it in, it's amazing. Honestly, I think that Gallagher, with his aerial ability, I don't think there's any chance that any defender is going to cope with him and a Callum Britton cross.
Can't break a stead remastered.
Imagine we'd love it back. So a good one just on Dak. We'll round up soon. We'll wrap it all up. But Jared, of course, he'll be back with his watch alongs this weekend if you tune in. But he will play more games for us this season. Dak or Ayala. Now, there seems an obvious answer for me, but I think it could be a bit closer than we think, and it could be maybe who played the most minutes, because there's something about Dak. I love him, and obviously everything he's done with this team, but is he going to get to the stage soon where he's going to be back? I think it's going to take him quite a while to get firing again and get back. Last year he didn't look fit, did he really? Let's be honest, he come back, and obviously so, but can we see him actually getting so much? What we're saying? Are we saying that? I think Dak will play more, but I think it'll be closer than maybe the question suggests.
No, I think that if there's no more centre-backs coming in and we really are going the way we are, which I don't think we will do. I mean, if we look at the sticker book, the announcement, it looks like there's a couple of spaces left in the defender apartment in that sticker book that we've got going. But I think even if we get one more centre-back in, I think it will be whoever we sign at centre-back and Ayala starting. And I think it's one of them ones where, if anything, Blackburn are really going to press for Ayala to stay fit. And like you said before about Dak, are you really a Rovers fan if you don't love Dak? I think everyone who loves Rovers loves Bradley Dak. I mean, he is Mr. Rovers for the past, 3-4 years, really, 5 going back. So yeah, what do you call it? I think that I'd love to see Dak getting loads and loads of minutes this year. Will he stay fit? I mean, he's not really stayed fit in pre-season, never mind getting into the actual season. I think he won't start this year. I think Ayala will, and I think the start of the season is what will get Ayala more minutes than Dak himself.
Just to finish off, we'll start with him. We'll go all the way around on this one from Steve. A final one, unless a big noticeable comment comes in. And I don't want to end it on this, but if Rovers are down there come January, what do we do? Do you think we should stick? Well, do you think we will stick, or do you think we might get a bit panicky and, try and replace him? I think money comes into it, doesn't it? But, Dom, do you think Rovers might just say, maybe it didn't work out? Or do you think we're in this for the long haul and it's going to be a hit? Well, I use the word that often, but a transition season and then going into, next season?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's one thing that we do that is in a good way or a bad way, is that we don't panic in sacking the manager. It took us till March to sack Owen Cole. The foundation is there, like Matt and Alex alluded to, and the squad is young and it will develop over the years. So you can't really panic when we're in the bottom 6 in January. There's teams that are a lot worse than us, and like I just said, the foundation is there. If we're in January and we need the signings, just a quick loan or two, then I think that's all we need, a little boost.
Matt?
I think we are going to stick out with him at the end of the day. Like you said, they don't want to sack him and then pay him off really at this point. We've got him in. There's been real excitement over him. I think compared to Coyle and stuff like that, there's this big hype around him. Mowbray's been here for however long now, and he's come in, he's taken over, he's the big reins now. So, we could get to the bottom half of the table in January. But I think we're going with the whole trust the process. We go back to that whole line, trust the process. And I think we are going to have to in the long term. If we're anywhere near like where we're thinking to the point where, oh God, we actually could be getting relegated here, I think, yeah, okay, that's when we really hit the panic button, because that's when you look at our youth and our players we've got and we're like, we're not even risking losing these players because we're playing League One football next year. So Depends how low we're talking. If we're hitting relegation by January, we're still gonna, like you said, with Kyle, we'll give it till March. We'll give it a little bit longer. But if by near the end of the season we're thinking we're still there, that's when we'll start going. You know what, JDT, it's been good. The whole program we had ready for you was good, but it's not worked out, mate. We need to move on.
Go on, Alec. Finish us off for the video. Finish us off for your live stream.
Here's
Rovers,
Mr. JDT getting sacked in January.
If we're in the bottom six, I don't want to discuss
thing,
it. But
yeah.
go
the
on,
one thing the one thing that stuck out to me when we're talking about bottom six is quite a broad range.
Yeah.
You know, because if we're 19th, then you don't sack him, obviously. But if you're 24th and you're 10 points adrift at Christmas, then you do. So it's.
But Christmas,
you know, it's one of those things. You know, Rovers have shown real inconsistency with managers. We've kept managers for too long. Coyle and Keane. We've sacked Berg after 10 games. We've sacked Alperton after 15 games. It seems like really the only logic behind keeping managers is whether they get on or not with Venky's, and not really what the results are. So if Tomasson's bottom of the league at Christmas, but Venky's love him, then I think he'll be staying as long as he wants to stay. If Venky's decide they don't like him, they could sack him if we're second. You know, that's just what they're like. So bottom six is a broad range, but as I said before, transition season doesn't mean that we'd shake hands on 21st right now. Transition season means we've lost 6 first teamers from last season and finished 8th. We're not going to be expecting to be in that same position next season. It's just as simple as that.
So to summarise that, it's all about personalities. As long as the manager's a good guy, that's all that matters. He's staying.
That's not my way I would run the club, but that's the way that it has been run in the past, and that's the way that I think it will be run into the future. That, you know, if a manager gets on with the Venky's, regardless of results, they keep the job, and if they don't get along with the Venky's, they get sacked. It's as simple as that. That's why Mowbray lasted as long as he did, and that's why Coyle lasted as long as he did. Yeah. So that's what I would end it on. That I think Tomasson will do better than a lot of people think. I think he's a better manager than people give him credit for. But when we talk about transition, that doesn't mean 21st is great. That means, you know, we've got to be understanding that we're not going to be competing for top 6 at the moment with the squad we've got. You know, because we've lost 6 key players from last season's team.
Yeah.
So you can't expect that. So I think when people say on Twitter that transition's a dirty word, I think people mean that 21st is all right, when I think we'd all agree that 21st would be a disappointing season next season. It's all about how relative it is and what happens for the rest of the window. But yeah, I think Rovers will do better than people think.
Yeah.
And I think if we sign 2 or 3 more players before the end of the window, I think we could do much better than some people think we'll do. So it's certainly not all negative going into the season by any means. I think we've got a decent base to work from.
I think for me, transition means that you see the tactics coming in.
Exactly.
You know, we'll have bad weeks. I think Swansea's the prime example last year. Do you remember Swansea at Ewood on that opening day? I haven't seen a side play like that out the back for years. They were that bad. They were shockingly bad. That keeper, it was Bender in net, weren't it? He was horrendous. But you saw towards the end of the season, you know, the strikers started scoring in the formation. Players started impressing, and that's what we want to see really in terms of transition. That's the thing. It's, can Tomasson, by the end of the season, have his tactics in place where next year we can think we can push further up and we can make, you know, with the right signs, we can push our way up. And that's what we're after. We're not after, I agree with you that I don't think 21st to be acceptable for us. I personally think as long as we avoid a relegation threat at all this season, I think we're in a position where we can then move on. You know, if we're loitering around 20th all season and we still come to April and we're around there, it's like, it's when worry kicks in. But if we're pushing up and, you know, we'll have bad months. We know fixtures are tough. The first month, I think, is a tough month to have. But as long as we're showing that sign of pushing on and essentially making the transition from Mowbray to JDT, then that's when I think we'll be in a good position. But we'll see how it all goes. We know how football works. This time next year, we could be talking about a really good season coming up, or we could be talking about someone else. We'll see. We'll stay tuned with it. We'll follow it throughout, get it covered throughout. But I think it's been a really good 50 minutes or so. Thanks to Dom for joining us.
Yeah, thanks. What I will say as well is if we beat Burnley, win the World Cup, beat Preston away, then nothing else matters, doesn't it? Like that little period.
Unreal. And Matt, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, always a pleasure. As long as JDT makes it past Christmas, that's all I ask for now after what Alex has put in my head. I'm going to go to bed crying tonight. Cheers, Alex.
And Alex, thanks for joining us as always.
Thanks, Stan. And I did not advocate for sacking him at Christmas at all. I said if we were 24th at Christmas, you'd maybe think about it. But I don't think we will be. So there you go.
Not my words, Alex. Not my words.
Just wait until you see Matt's fantasy football predictions come out, then we'll see what's up. But anyway, we'll round off there. Thanks to everyone for joining us. Check out all the videos. You can check out mine and Matt's fantasy football as well in the coming days. You don't want to see Matt's, but you can see mine.
Dan's is debatable. Debatable Dan is what we call him at Rovers Chat. Debatable Dan.
Should we talk about who's dropped the player on the first day that plays for your own club? Or should we wait?
You've got one player from Rovers. Come on. Sure.
Thanks to everyone for joining us. We'll round off there. It's been a pleasure. Everyone for commenting, subscribing. You know, the channel's really grown over the last month or so. Keep it coming. Keep liking all the videos, subscribing. You know, we'll keep everything across the season. But remember to hit subscribe. Do all that stuff I always forget to tell you. And we'll see you again for a new video. Thanks, everyone.
Beyond bent.